What is going on, guys? Johnny on the track back with another video. And this week we go to Texas. And for those that know anything about me or have watched this program and watched this channel for the past couple of years, you know that I despise Texas. I think it's an awful track. They ruined it when they repaved it. It's been bad for quite some time now, even when the next gen car has performed really well on intermediate mile and a half tracks. Texas still stinks. It is tough to pass. Somehow there still seems to be like a lot of cautions there and some big wrecks. It's a weird track. It's a tough track to predict, sort of, just because like I said, even you go back to last year's race, like it became a caution fest towards the back half of that race. So yeah, it's a terrible track. I think we're gonna have a pretty awful race. But who knows? I mean, we'll keep our fingers crossed that maybe there's hope that this weekend and in this year that Texas has some success. I mean, a pro of Texas right now, I guess, is the last two races have been quite frankly awful. So if it's on par with what we've seen, I guess it's not it can't be any worse than what we saw the past 2 weeks with Martinsville and Richmond. So anyway, we will now get into it. I guess real quick, let me just give the plug to the NASCAR betting preview show. It's the podcast feed that you can listen to for this show and also many other NASCAR betting content creators. You're going to hit a follow on however way you stream your podcast, the podcast app, Spotify. Just hit a follow on that podcast feed to get the best bets and get you prepped for the weekend for trucks, Xfinity, and of course Cup, which is what we cover. And on top of that, the NASCAR betting preview show goes live on X, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday nights. You can look at that. And I guess I'll just plug what a weekend we had last Sunday for Martinsville. Hit William Byron, gave that bet out on the show early to if you liked that number, you could have plugged it in. I think it was around plus 12 to plus 1400, depending on the book. I gave it out. We won that. Ended with Chevy manufacturer with Hendrick Hendrick Motorsports winning team. Top 10 for Bubba Wallace. Top 10 for Ryan Preece. Maybe there's some Ryan Blaney I gave out on the show, top 5. So we hit literally everything last weekend. So hopefully we can carry that momentum. Again, for the final betting card, that's Johnny on the Track on Action Network. Although I wasn't too happy with Action Network this past weekend because the odds, the consensus rather odds that they were showing were just not very good. Not on par with any of the books. So I was a little upset at that. So I actually did some bets on Action Network, but posted my whole betting card as I always do at JOTT_podcast on Twitter or X. So there it is. Great weekend last week. Let's continue it this week at Texas. So I'm going to start with, I think, a prop bet / some good value on some dark horse picks. So 2311, I think, is going to have a really good weekend. Bubba Wallace at the last year's Texas race in the fall in the playoffs, he led the most laps. He started on the pole, ended up finishing third. Reddick had a good car, kind of, he didn't have the best luck in the second half of the race, but he won the first stage. He had a fast car. He qualified well. Just didn't get a good result. But I think 2311 is going to bring some good cars. I think Bubba right now, there's great value on Bubba for an outright win. It's plus 1,600 right now. I feel like I saw it even around plus 1,800. So great value to get Bubba early. And the number on Reddick right now is hovering at plus 600. I don't love that. I'm hoping, maybe he qualifies around 12th and that moves to around plus 1,000. Then I think you can take Reddick. But no matter what, I think Bubba and Reddick are going to be really fast. I like 2311 to be the winning team. I think that's another great bet. But Bubba showed me something at Martinsville. He's been pretty good these past couple weeks. And Texas has shown to be a very favorable track for Bubba. So I like that bet, and I like 2311. Eric Jones is another guy. And it seems like at this point, Eric Jones seems to be kind of chalk this week from a lot of people. He's very chalky pick. He was top 5 in speed. And that's brought to you by ifantasyrace.com and everything that Ryan does. He's got that's where I get most of my stats if I'm looking for some, deep level stats. For speed and green flag speed and by certain increments. So Ryan has great stuff. So that's ifantasyrace.com, just in case you're new to the podcast. I plug him quite a bit. But yeah, Eric Jones had top 5 speed. He was top 10 for most of that race prior to some of the chaos that happened in the back half of the race, but he had a great car. He ran second for a while as well. So I think Eric Jones in that Toyota camp, they're going to be really good this week. Denny Hamlin is another name in the Toyota camp that has been really good at Texas. I think he's been number 1 in speed, or maybe number 2. I think Larson is number 1 in speed at Texas in the next Genera. But Eric Jones, I think, is a guy you want to lock in for a top 10 bet. And if you want a super dark horse pick, Eric Jones sits at plus 8,000 right now on the board. So I think there's great value in trying to get an Eric Jones super dark horse pick. You put $10 on it, you win. That's $800. So quite the value there. Two other Fords I'm now gonna give out is Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher. And I think there's a couple ways you could do this. Definitely top 10s if you like for both of those guys. But also I think that the best prop is top Ford for some of those guys. So I'll start with Brad. I think right now, right, if you look at top Ford for Brad Keselowski, in my opinion, the only competition is Blaney. And Brad Keselowski finished 7th at the Texas Fall race. He qualified well. He essentially was the second Ford. Harvick finished 1 position better, but that car is now, or that driver rather, is now gone, right? Josh Berry's in that car. I don't think Berry's the guy you're going to look at Texas. So I think Brad Keselowski for the top Ford. I don't know what that bet is right now, but when it comes out, he's probably going to have the 4th to 5th best odds if I had to guess. I think probably Blaney, right? Logano are going to be ahead of him. So I think there's value there in Brad. And then I would look at his teammate as well. He had a great car at this track last year. The interesting part about Buescher, though, is even though he had a great start to the race last year, had a fast car, he has never scored a top 10 in his Cup career at Texas. It's a wild stat to me. This is his home track. But for some reason, the results just don't click with Buescher. And it looked like that he was going to have a really good run last fall. And again, just didn't get the result, quite frankly. But I like Buescher in this spot. I like Brad in this spot. I think that team is an interesting one to keep your eyes on. But definitely, I think some small bets on those guys to be the top Ford. I think there's going to be some good value on that. Another Ford, actually 2 more Fords, I guess I'll mention. We'll start with Chase Briscoe as another guy. I think a top 10, and again, maybe him for top Ford, I think there's good value there, but definitely for a top 10. If we look at his outright odds right now, it's plus 8,000. So he's in that Eric Jones area. He's behind in odds Noah Gragson at plus 6,000. So this is an interesting one here because Chase Briscoe, he had a top 5 and a top 10 in the last 2 races at Texas in the next gen era. It's interesting with Briscoe because he doesn't always have the best car, but it just seems like he always finds a way to get a top 10 and get the most out of his car at this track. I feel like he just drives this track well. He comes in with a good mindset, good strategy oftentimes. Like really at Texas, it's a lot like a short track where track position is king. It's tough to pass at Texas, which is interesting again because it's a wide track. Like it should be kind of easy to pass, but it's just not. So Chase Briscoe, top 10. I think there's going to be great value there, and maybe even the top Ford. I don't know what you can get that at, but maybe it's something around +2, plus 1,500. I don't know. That could be a wild guess. But just based on his outright odds, I mean, I don't think that's too far fetched, quite frankly. So Chase Briscoe, and again, like another thing to add with Briscoe, great season so far. He's been really impressive, hovering right around the playoff cut line. I think he's 17th in points. So Chase Briscoe on that team, they're off to a pretty solid start, and I think Stuart Haas, I've seen improvements from them all season, and I think this is that real step to see if Briscoe can run top 10 to top 5 most of the day at a track like Texas. One other Stuart Haas forward I want to keep my eye on. It is Noah Gragson. I mentioned him being plus 6,000 for an outright. I'm definitely not going to bet him for an outright. I'm more just interested to see, like, he had a really good car at Vegas, had a really good run at Vegas, scored a top 10. Like, was that a home track thing because he's a Vegas born guy? Or like, did they find something? Like, did the Mustang Dark Horse like take Stuart Haas and maybe these Fords to that even playing field with the other guys or the other manufacturers, I should say. I don't know. But Gregson was lights out at Vegas. Like he was really good. So can he bring that speed to another mile and a half track? Only the second one we've had at Texas. I think that's going to be an interesting one to watch. I will say Gregson was fast in practice at Vegas, which people should have known. Okay, he was fast in practice. And it translated, quite frankly, to the race. And he didn't even qualify well, and he made his way all the way up the field. So, yeah, I think if he qualifies and practices well, watch Gregson for some, just to have a good race. In the Xfinity series, like this was his bread and butter. Like these intermediate tracks were his bread and butter. So I like Gregson here. Maybe hold off and let's get a better look at practice and qualifying. But I think that's going to tell the story of Noah Gragson and maybe Stewart Haas racing as a whole. Even right with a guy like Briscoe, can Briscoe and Priest and Barry use that data that they saw with Gregson in that car and that team at Vegas and bring it to Texas? I don't know, but I think it's an interesting thing to watch. And I think there's good value on whenever that those numbers close on Gregson, I think there's going to still be good value on him to make some noise, quite frankly. So those are the bets and the guys I'm looking at. So let's go through it again. Bubba Wallace for the outright with 23-11. Those cars. Eric Jones top 5 in a dark horse money line pick. Busher and Brad with the RFK camps to maybe be top 10, top Ford. Chase Briscoe, another guy, top 10, top Ford. And I don't know, maybe Gregson top 10 when those lines open. But like I said, practice qualifying going to tell a lot. I mean, look, Larson, Hendrick, Denny Hamlin, they're going to be fast. There's no doubt about it. But I think we need to find other ways to find some good value on the board at the moment until we see more with practice and qualifying. As always, final betting card, Johnny on the track on Action Network at JOTT_podcast on X. That is how you can see all the best bets in the final card for me for this Sunday at Texas. Want to know what you guys think? Put it in the comments section below of who you're targeting for this Sunday. Give this video a like. It goes a long way for the channel. And if you're a first-time viewer, please subscribe for more great motorsports content. Thanks again, and let's win some money.